Two, rhetoric goes with propaganda, populism, I mean, all the negative stuff. So for me, I said this morning, I was saying, oh my God, there's such a rich kind of knowledge that is not out there. So I'm not asking a question, but I see the paradox of what the academia sees, what is in the rhetoric, which is actually what I would really want to be preaching about. Because yes, it's about our culture, it's about how we communicate, it's how about we relate. But whenever I was at the UN, we were making, it was the Women, Peace and Security Week. And then at the end, we have one of the ministers saying, you know, when you talk about women, it's just rhetoric. So I really wanted to share this sentiments about how much I've been really getting to listening to you. All your perspectives is amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
One or two more.
It was kind of, I'm sorry, before I leave.
There was a gentleman in the back, but go ahead.
Oh, no, I mean, so mine was kind of a continuation of her question. I don't want to, like, belabor that point too much, so if you had a separate question. But if I can briefly just say my thing, the one thing that kind of troubled me with the one drop rule was that I also feel like that we can trace the roots of colorism back to that assertion. Because even though legally blacks would be all categorized under the same roof as you have one drop, so you're going to be part of this black roof as a method of separation. When you think about social implications, that doesn't necessarily mean that all the other blacks in the community are going to see you as a black person. Because even into today, honestly, into the 1980s, we see that that fair-skinned black people weren't accepted under that same roof. Like, I just watched a documentary about Whitney Houston, and even her in I think it was BET Awards, and early in her career, she didn't get an award because the black community kind of saw her as a person that was outside. You know, she spoke proper, she was fair-skinned. And even Whitney Houston was more brown-skinned than we, like, than most black people. So I feel like, yes, the unification was something that was kind of like an unintended consequence, but at the same time, I do think that there's the roots of separation within the black community when you look at each other and you try to say you want to align yourself with white people, or you want to, you know, that was just kind of the thought that I had. But I thought it was a really interesting take.
Yeah, I'd like the panelists to develop for us further the concept of decolonizing the imaginary. If we are decolonizing the imaginary, we need also to look at the definition of blackness itself that we have inherited from a Eurocentric worldview. We should not simply accept black or blackness. We should look at it through a process of decolonizing the concept of blackness. So I'd like for perhaps Professor Akasi or one of the panelists, in looking at the process of decolonizing the mind, how do you define identity? Do you define it in racial terms, or do you define it in cultural terms? So I'd like for you to put this further a little bit for us.
Everybody, yeah, the microphone.
Do you define identity in racial terms, or do you define it in cultural terms, or let's say existentialist or essentialist terms?
Wow, it was a good question, very good question. It's one that's, I think, troubling a lot of intellectuals and political leaders today. Questions of identity, and those who are postmodernists, for example, are critical of racial identity because they contend that those of us who insist on black identity are being essentialists, meaning that we are advocating that there's only one way of being black. I think that's a false argument. However, I do want to make a point about blackness as well. One can think of blackness in terms of cultural blackness and political blackness. Ron Walters wrote a powerful, and Obama announced it in September 2007. This is several months into his candidacy. He wrote a powerful article titled "Barack Obama and the Politics of Blackness." And he contrasted Obama's run for the presidency with Jesse Jackson's run for the presidency. Jackson represented blackness, and political blackness, meaning he rose up out of the black community. He articulated black interests, and he wanted to measure whether or not Obama would be able to do the same. And the short answer is no. Obama didn't come up out of the black community, so to speak. And he wasn't articulating black interests. He took this is Obama saying, I'm a universalist, as opposed to a particularist, meaning he wasn't going to pinpoint black issues and try to target them to address them. He's going to take the universalist approach, which is essentially saying I'm not going to take a head-on approach to addressing black issues. I understood that because in order to be elected president, he could not articulate black interests. There's no way whites would vote for him if he came out the box saying, if he came out the box like Jesse Jackson. So there's expressive blackness that we see every day: music, song, dance, black spirituality. Those things happen on a daily basis. Then you have political blackness, which I think is a more self-conscious decision on the part of people to articulate. But I'll stop there because it's a very important question.
Briefly, I want to respond by saying, you everyday saying, it all depends on the details. The devil is in the details. Just like about rhetoric. Earlier, one of the questioners spoke about the high values of rhetoric and in its ideals, but we know also the negative rhetoric, the rhetoric of fascism, of Hitler, and of white nationalism we see here. So it depends how you define identity. You can define identity as possessing the values of dignity, of history, of wanting to do good for the in-group as well as for the larger group, or you can define it as identity of hate, identity of exclusion, identity of violence. So we say I teach research class, and they call it operational definition, which is how you own a word and give it the meaning you want it to give. Movements, organizations, scholars, rhetoricians pick the thing and exactly define the way it is, and that's how it becomes effective for negative movements like fascism, or for great movements like all the movements we see having great value because they define the truth with passion, with history, with all the attributes of making good both in content, in style, in dissemination, and in communication.
So I'm not sure I can go too deeply into this, but in my first book I sort of laid out a sense of how we can think about identity. And one of the things I argue in that book is we can think about identity in at least 4 ways that ought to be seen as in tension with one another. We should not try to reduce one to the other at all. And I talk about a conception of identity first as the ways that you are interpellated. In other words, there are ways in which, without your choice, sort of what did Du Bois, for instance, say about what blackness means? Blackness means, when I get into a car or a vehicle, I'm told to sit at the back of the bus. There's a sense there that whether or not he wants to, there's a sort of social, structural, oppressive calling out of you as a black person, that regardless of whether you want to, identify as a black, that's sort of an imaginary, a sort of social structural white structure that says you are a black person or you are not a black person. So that's the first one. And then the second one I talked about also is the notion of identity or identity. I don't like to talk a lot about identity, I talk a lot about subjectivity, but subjectivity as sort of political, sort of ways in which we, certain people sort of get together to say, we are these people and we are going to articulate this kind of political project. And the third I talk about is the phenomenological, which is the experiential, sort of the idea of one saying, this is how I feel, this is how I want to identify as, and this is how I want to perform as. And the fourth is sort of utopian, which is a sense of becoming, sort of a sense in which identity can never be held to be one thing, but it's always a sort of a way of being which is open to a futural performance. So there's a sense in which blackness can never be reduced even to a historical or even a contemporary articulation right now. There's always a sense of blackness as something that we, even those of us who consider ourselves black, cannot envision blackness to be. And I want to think of those sort of, I talked of four, but it could be several. But the point is to always think of those things as in tension with one another, never to think that you can reduce one to the other. And also to refuse ideas of purity and authenticity, insofar as those, to a certain extent, those foreclose a possibility for a futural utopian kind of articulation.
Thank you. Professor Christoph, this is a great question. I would like to begin saying, and I think this debate maybe need to come to the end, there is not a discourse on black that is essentialist. There is not such a discourse. Why? Because the concept of black comes in a very historical moment. The African in Africa discovers they were African as a construction vis-a-vis the colonizer. This is very important. If we forget that, we cannot understand all the movements that came out in the 20s, in the Harlemers, in the 30s, the negritude, and the negrism. So number one is a construction, the identity. The black also, the black in the Americas is constructed in historical moments. They construct because the controversy of Valladolid in Spain, when they were trying to replace the indigenous by other people who can work in the plantation and the mine in the Americas. So Fray Bartolomé de las Casas decided to replace them by black. From then come out the concept black to come to the Americas. So their construction. This is number two. Number three is the constant construction of blackness. Look at, for instance, in Latin America, most of the people, to piggyback with you a little bit about how one drug can separate people, right? In Latin America, it's easy to separate because the identity is individual. But guess what? Some people with a fair skin, like you say, and I don't even know why they call them fair skin. See, nobody stop to decolonize. Why this skin is fair? Who isn't fair on that matter? So, when they in Latin America, they consider themselves as no black until they get to the Dallas airport. And then they say negro. And they say me? They say, yes, sir, you're black. So, it's a construction. Deconstruction, reconstruction, the identity. So we need to think in this term and not think in essentialism. Most of the time people say to people, you essentially when they don't want you to continue the conversation about your pride.
Please join me in thanking our Roundtable team. We're going to take a short break.
Before the break, it's an announcement. So, you want to help that?
One moment. I'm standing between the break and these gentlemen being released from what was a very stimulating discussion. My name is Earl and I'm an associate professor in the College of Pharmacy and the director of graduate programs. And I'm charged with the responsibility of recognizing a couple individuals. Dr. Green, you have been quite a supporter of the African Journal of Rhetoric. You have been a co-editor, and you have demonstrated excellence in your field. And we want to take an opportunity to really take this moment and say thank you for a job well done. Ambassador, if you wouldn't mind coming forward and doing the presentation to Dr. Green, I would greatly appreciate it.
I love this. This is the easiest of all, but congratulations, Green. I've read so much about you. Now I'm so happy and I'm honored to give this to you. Well deserved. In the middle. I hope you'll be able to see me. You can hear me, right?
Put up the light.
Beautiful.
All right.
Good.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
If you mind, stay right
Oh,
here.
okay, another one.
And we have with us a gentleman who I came to know in Namibia. He has been quite a collaborator with the African Association of Rhetoric. He has served tirelessly. His scholarship is known across Africa, the Middle East, and North America. I want to introduce to some and welcome to most Dr. Omidi Ochieng.
Top of Rhetoric, here it is. Okay, congratulations. Asante sana. Asante sana kwa nzuri. Yeah, we are now, it is now Swahili zone. Top of connecting through Rhetoric.
Thank you.
Dr. Green.
Yeah, great, yes, please. Yeah, that's great.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, gentlemen. You guys have done a tremendous job. I know that we could spend the entire day engaging in a lot of this discussion, but we will give a break and move on to the next session. Please don't go away, because we have a lot to talk about. Thank you.